as an entrepreneur or anybody trying to increase their net worth, you have to learn something yourself. Whoever you want to be like, you want to hang around those people. If you seek that out and do it humbly and not like, hey, this is how awesome I am, people are pretty receptive to bringing you under their wing or like, hey, let's talk, or you know what I'm saying? I think that's the big thing. I think being real.
Welcome to the Cash Flow Bros podcast, Rock Sandretto. Thanks for coming out, man.
Yeah, man.
Appreciate it.
I'm super excited.
So we've known each other for quite a long time. Yeah. Probably like more from a distance. You know, I think we had a mutual friend. Right. I was in photography. You were getting into photography. Yeah. We kind of had a few connections. You blew up. You were traveling across the country, like shooting some stuff in like, you know, amazing like national parks and stuff like that. And just did a phenomenal job at that. And through that, though, I kind of learned that you had done some business and stuff. And then we reconnected recently, and I was like, I've got to have you on the podcast because the wealth of knowledge that you have is just crazy about businesses and kind of what happens in Birmingham. And so kind of wanted to dive into that. And I appreciate you taking the time to be here. Dude.
One thing I want to add to that. So when I first started photography, you can learn anything on YouTube. But I reached out to so many Alabama photographers to just try to be like, hey, can I shadow? Can I learn anything? And there was two, Blake Raymond, which is, you know, Blake, and was one of my buddies. And then we went and shot one day. And just being around you, because you have shot for so long, I remember I was soaking up so much knowledge, dude. So it really helped out, man. And you were already a successful photographer at the time. So for you to take time and deal with somebody that's just starting, you know what I'm saying? It was just, there was a couple of people, and I remember it always rubbed me the wrong way because I was like, all these people that were successful in Alabama, I would reach out and just cold show, you know, nobody's helping out at all, which I hated that.
Yeah, it is kind of unfortunate. I mean, it's very competitive, you know. I think, you know, what's interesting is as the cameras, honestly, the technology got better and better, you had to have less ability and more about, you know, other parts of photography, which are super important, you know, the relational side and getting people to feel comfortable and all that kind of stuff. But I think it just put people on their guard of like, I don't want to help this person out versus like, I always work from a place of abundance. Like there's plenty of business for all of us, and you have a voice that I don't have. And so why would I even deprive people of that voice? So.
That's my thing, man. I always want to treat people like I would want to be treated. You know what I'm saying? Like, I helped out tons of photographers that were just starting because I just remember that feeling of being like, dude, nobody's helping me. You know what I'm saying?
That's awesome.
So that's cool. Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah. So let's take it back to just kind of a little bit of your story, how you and your wife, you know, from early years to how you guys ended up starting a salon, and we'll kind of just go from there. So.
Let's go. Every time Brittany hears me on a podcast, she's like, that's not the true story. So I'm just going to give it my narrative.
She wants to be sitting here and just be like, actually, let me tell you how it is.
Yes. So I grew up in Oak Grove, which is outside of Hueytown, Alabama, small town. My mom was a teacher. My dad was worked at the college. And so they all went to college and everything like that. And that was kind of like expected of all of us kids. Well, out of high school, I got on drugs real bad. And so I kind of went down that path. I dropped out of college and started going that path. And while I was trying to clean myself up, this is probably, like I said, I'm probably butchering this, but 3-4 year period, maybe something like that. Yeah. I started trying to clean myself up, and Brittany, my wife, was best friends with my sister Brittany, both Brittany's. And I remember she came to the house, and I totally pursued her, and she'll tell you that, you know what I'm saying? It wasn't like the other way around. But yeah, so we started hitting it off, and we started dating. And then during that time of dating, she didn't know that I was taking methadone, which is it's like I was on Oxycontins, and then methadone's supposed to be like there's like methadone clinics around. Yeah, and it's supposed to help you. The science behind it is supposed to help you. And that's the way I took it. I did the research behind it, and I was like wanting to take it like it was supposed to be taken. Anyways, went to, had a DUI, and I had to go to drug court, failed my drug test in court with my mom sitting there. It was terrible. I had to go to jail for like it was 48 hours, 2 days. Yeah. Started detoxing in jail. Anyway, me and Brittany were dating at the time. I didn't want to tell her why I failed the drug test. So I was like, I failed for weed, you know, just to kind of like, I thought that to kind of tone it down a little bit, you know what I'm saying? Which is, I mean, you know, still a drug, but So she stuck with me, and I went through 2 weeks of detox, and it was hell, man. Detox was miserable. I told my parents to lock me in the house, so like they all helped out during that time. And we were broken up, you know. She was like, "I'll stay with you while you detox and try to help you," because I just needed a friend, you know, somebody that like to be there. She stayed with me that whole time, and it got clean. We ended up staying together, which is amazing. She's an amazing girl. She loves the Lord. She's helped me tremendously through my life. But so I was probably clean about a year. We get pregnant. We have our first kid. We get married. She was like a couple months pregnant. We get married really fast. Yeah. That daughter's now 16, so we've been together 17-ish years, something like that, or married around that time. So we had her. We have 3 other kids now. But at the time when we started our first business was in 2015. I worked in a coal mine, so I was a coal miner for 7 years, I think. Underground, I was an electrician. And I was like, hey, this is life, right? I was like, I accepted, like, I'm going to be a coal miner. I'm going to retire from here.
It was interesting because you had mentioned earlier about being an electrician. I was like, I didn't remember that. Yeah. So you were an electrician in the coal mines. Yes. So what, rigging up things and kind
so
of
like troubleshooting.
Sure?
Yeah, so like if a miner goes down, the Lord really like watched out for me though during that thing, because I got moved to it's like a production where all the coal comes like 7 miles underground. It comes all the way down to where I am, and then it shoots out, you know, to the surface. And so for the last like 2 years of that, maybe 3, I was down there, the only electrician down there. And man, it was a union job. I started going back to college because I wanted to be an engineer, a mechanical engineer. So I was reading all the time. I didn't really have to work unless something happened. But if something happened, I had to be able to fix it really fast because it's money, you know.
So like if it's down, but you're literally in the coal mines reading your textbooks.
Bro, yeah, textbooks. I read through the whole Bible, man. I had the Bible down there, and I was just like, I read through the whole Bible. I mean, I read so many books. It was amazing, though. It was a lot of fun. The people, it was. Looking back at it, I was there, I think, to help encourage and positive light, maybe. You know what I'm saying? It's just a different type of person, which is fine. But I kind of accepted that I would be down there. And then towards the end of that, which was in 2015, September 2015, a few months prior to that, Brittany wanted to open a salon. And so we were kind of praying through that of like, you know, do we open a salon? Like, how do we do all this? And sure enough, man, it was during 21 days of prayer, we kind of figured out, hey, we're going to open this salon, get all this going. And I was praying about staying at the mines because we just didn't know how the business would do versus me quitting and trying to do something else. Because the coal mines, we had a decent living, like we were okay. I feel like we were below our means, so we had some little room. Yeah. And during that 21 days towards the end, we were praying, and there's a lot more to this story, but it was like I felt like a God just being like, quit your job type thing. And I remember I was driving, and I remember where I was on it. It was a 50-minute drive from 280 to Oak Grove to where I had to go to the coal mines. And man, it was like just this real voice type thing of like, quit your job, you know? Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay, but
which is not common for like, I'm going to start a business and quit my job at the same time.
It was, but it was one of those decisions too, is a peaceful decision because I knew that the Lord, like we felt confident that he was going to guide this through. And so we did, man. 2 weeks I put my 2 weeks notice in, and then 2 weeks later we opened the salon. Our first location was off of Valleydale.
I remember.
Yeah. And 6 chairs. So it was a small salon. And the Lord, man, it grew and kept growing. I was front desk for a while. Dude, I shampooed hair, bro.
Yeah. Did what it took, man.
I did whatever it took, man. Brittany was working her tail off. Like, she was behind the chair. I don't know. I mean, it was a lot, man. Yeah. She was always working. And so that was our first business in 2015. And then
so I want to stop you there because you talked about some of your early life, some of the struggles, and you talked about the coal mining, which is probably its own struggle. Like, you know, that is a hard life. And talk to me through, I just hear this stream of resilience that prepared you for the entrepreneurship. I don't know if you would have potentially had the stay with power, because you and I both know the entrepreneur journey can be really tough, really lonely sometimes. Talk me through that a little bit about what those early years maybe helped inform the next. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I think the first week we were open, when I saw, and again, this is just pretty much Brittany doing hair, but when I saw the amount that came in, it wasn't huge by any means, but it was like, I was like, okay, our family will be okay. Like, we're going to live tight, but we're going to make this through. And I also knew it was the right decision to do. And I knew numbers, like Excel. I love Excel. And I dropped out of school again. I was on the dean's list the second time going back for engineering. So I was like, this is what I'm supposed to do. But I learned so much. Honestly, it was really just with Excel, like, because I had to take all those like basic classes, you know. Dude, I learned so much. So when we opened the business, I was able to just do so much stuff. We still didn't have a system for how to pay, because it's a commission-based salon.
Right.
So you hear there's tons of different ideas on how you pay commissions and stuff like that. So it was that learning curve of trying to figure out how we want to structure our business model to be able to. Our big thing was we wanted our employees to be taken care of so good that they're not we'd never worry about, okay, they're going to go to the next salon or whatever. If you can take care of your employees, it was, everything works perfect. So that I think learning those through that first year of letting people go that I probably maybe should have let go, or all these struggles with different team members that were kind of like that resistance, and it, maybe they should have been let go a long time ago, but trying to deal with it. Now everything has a system. Like our whole business has a certain system that we follow as a playbook now. But I remember back then, man, it was hard, and we never went without. We had 6 months saved up, so we pulled that down, and then in 6 months we started paying ourselves, and so it really just flowed perfectly. I was still working a lot more than I am now, of course, but it was just that building up of that, and seeing and it's a cash flow business, so seeing payroll, man, when you write a payroll check and you're like, oh wow, the bank account's super low right now.
It was really high,
yeah.
Now it's low.
It's like that was a lot of money we're paying out.
Yeah.
And man, there were so many struggles with that first going. I mean, I remember one time, man, I can't remember what year. It was in that beginning time, man. Like one of our payrolls bounced, and it was like, and we were writing live, checks to everybody, handing them out. And one of the girls called us, one of our stylists, and was like, hey, blah, blah, blah. And I remember me and Brittany, we were at Railroad Park. I think we just had coffee right there at the that coffee shop. But I remember we were just in the car, and I remember we were just like in tears, like, what are we doing? And to work through all that now, and to understand you got to have a lot of cash in the bank just to flow through and stuff like that. So yeah, man, I think there's a lot of lessons like that. It was such a rough time because, like you said, it's so hard in the beginning stages, especially. We didn't have any friends that had businesses, so our network of even talking to somebody was non-existent. And it was just me and Brittany kind of figuring this stuff out,
How cool is it that you had each other, though?
It was really,
I think if she didn't have you and vice versa, it would have been a really tough and maybe unsuccessful business.
Yeah, I agree.
And we talk a lot on this podcast about your network is your net worth, and maybe it wouldn't have calmed every single storm that first year, but if you had one or two other previous salon owners or someone else who owned a business, like you could have shortcut some of those things. But luckily you made it.
We made
which is great.
And to add to that, what we ended up doing, it was the end of year one, we hired a consulting firm.
Oh, okay.
So that network that you're talking about, we pretty much paid for that network. They came in, taught us our business models, our pricing, how we do level systems. So really, we didn't have anybody. And then it was like one of our reps came in and was like, hey, have you heard of this consulting firm? And we're like, no. But anyway, we flew to Tampa, and it was everything we wanted for our employees, because it wasn't for us ever about like, hey, I want to be a millionaire or anything like that. Yeah. Ours was like, I don't care, man. I'll make a decent living. Let's pay for our family, but I want my people to be
take care
making
of people,
big money. You know what I'm saying? And so the consulting group, their playbook was like that. So we adopted so many things from them, and then we kind of made them our own now, of course. But
that's awesome. Yeah, pivoted, tweaked a few things and stuff.
Man.
What has that role of getting knowledge, information, educating yourself, how has that played in your entrepreneur journey? Like every time you come into like a roadblock, do you seek like something like that, like a service that's going to consult, or you reach out to a friend, or how has that evolved in you getting over the hurdles of being an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I think a lot of times you get stuck, or like you said, you hit this roadblock, or some issue comes up, and you're like, "What in the world are we supposed to do here?" Now, I think we've done it. Not saying we're not going to hit those spots, but now I think most of the roadblocks we hit now, we've faced them before, so we're able to kind of jump through that. We have a franchise that we bought, and we're closing it down. And me and you talked about that at lunch. And so I reached out to one of my buddies that owns a franchise in Atlanta, and just kind of talked him through, like, because contractual, you're kind of bound to this franchise. They have royalties and all this stuff. So that was a hurdle 3 weeks ago that I was like, bro, what are they going to make me pay all these? Like, how do we end this business type thing? And so, yeah, I think, but that grew over years of doing business, where you start having some sort of a network of people that have done the same thing. But those first years, bro, you don't have anybody unless you seek that out, unless you're like, I'm going to find a group, I'm going to listen to these podcasts, or whatever it is. I think people sometimes we give up on self-knowledge. Like we want like the tax code. We'd rather trust a CPA or somebody instead of learning it ourselves. You know what I'm saying? Just because it's a lot of work. So I think you have to grow smarter. So you have to feed yourself things, read books and stuff like that you're going to grow personally anyways. But then you also need to have a network of people, like you mentioned earlier, that you can lean on too in certain times of like, wow, this is over my head, or this is the first time I've seen this hurdle. Like, how do I get past this? Yeah. So I think it's a little bit of both. I think as an entrepreneur or anybody trying to increase their net worth, I think you have to learn something yourself. You can't be so codependent on like, oh, this dude's cool, I'm going to give him some cash and we're going to make some money on the side. You've got to understand the deal. Like, hey, let's look at this deal. You can't just, any investment, you can't go in blindly. I think if you do that, you don't do your due diligence and you're just setting yourself up.
You got to put in the work. Yeah. One thing I want to go to, you built that photography business. This was kind of like after the salons were going, you're like, hey, I'm going to do photos and stuff. And you did that for a while. And, but it blew up. I mean, you did a phenomenal job at that, networking, getting popular on Instagram, all that kind of stuff. The salon, I think, has done well because you and Brittany are good networkers and great at marketing yourselves. But in a very organic way. I think y'all are very likable people. What are some of the secrets to how you, besides like, I can't be Rock, okay, but I can be me, but what are some of the things that you have found that have helped you grow your network and helped you connect with people and helped you build those important relationships so quickly?
This is me speaking. I think this is what's helped me, and I think it's so easy when everything is good to be like, hey, look what I did, and have that kind of, well, our salon or our businesses are doing this, having that mentality. And now when I meet other investors or people that are putting together deals, if somebody has this aura that they think that they're just amazing, to me, that's a turnoff, right? So I think being humble, first of all, going in with good questions. I hate when somebody asks you to lunch and they want to learn about something and the questions are just pointless. You're like, you know what I'm saying? I could have bought my own lunch. I didn't have to spend this time with you. You know what I'm saying? So I think having that humbleness of approaching people too, because a lot of people are willing to help, especially in an investing world. I don't think it's so cutthroat like photography was back in the day or whatever like that. I mean, I think there's still some people that kind of close it off a little bit, but there's so many deals out there, and it's just networking with the right people. And I think a good thing to remember is whoever you want to be like, you want to hang around those people. You know what I'm saying? You want to have your close people that you can have those high-level conversations with, finances, because that's like a taboo subject. Nobody really talks finances. But you want to have like a group of people like that. So if you seek that out and do it humbly and not like, hey, this is how awesome I am, I think people are pretty receptive to bringing you under their wing or like, hey, let's talk, or, you know what I'm saying? I think that's the big thing. I think being real. I hate fake dudes, man. I hate when somebody, or same thing with I like pastors that are real people and they don't have this aura about them that are like, I never, you know what I'm saying? Like, I just want real people. And I think that's what people want is genuine people is like, you know what I'm saying? Like if that's what connects people, I think, is just being real,
Yeah, I love it. And I think it proves in your life. I mean, we kind of reconnected at church.
Yeah.
We saw each other in hall. I mean, we didn't see each other forever. And I was like, dude. Rock, like, gave you a hug. And in that moment, like, I didn't feel like there was anyone more important than me.
Yeah.
That when we were talking, like, you were very good at focusing on that person and saying, like, you have my attention, you have my time. This, like, you're very good at that. And I think that brings, like you said, that between the humility and then that intention, like, you bring value to that person, and then it just helps relationships blossom.
Thank you, man. I think it's big too. Like, hearing what you're doing now pumps me up, bro. Just because, like, I want everybody to succeed.
Yeah.
Like, that's my personality.
Yeah.
But I want everybody to know too, you got to put some work in. Like, it's just like when somebody comes to you with an idea and they're like, hey, this is an idea. And you're like, well, go do it. And then you don't do it. That drives me insane. I'm like, bro, this was a perfect idea. Great business model.
Yeah.
But everybody's too scared to take that step.
It's just the work.
It's the work.
It was funny. John David, you know John David pretty well. And he's a brilliant guy, and this is not a knock on him at all. But he's so smart with tech. Like, he could we'd come up against problems in the tech world, and he just solve it. And we're like, this is super early on before podcasts were like crazy popular and all that. And we're like, John David, you could have like 1 million followers of people just solving their tech problems, like some tech podcast thing. And he's like, yeah, but who has the time?
Like, dude, $1 million idea.
Yeah, it's like, but it's so funny. It's like, I would say we all have these ideas, these inspirations, like, yeah, we could try, but who has the time and who's going to put in the work?
That's the big thing, man.
Who's going to put
and
the effort in?
Most Americans will not do that.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's you see people coming from another country, coming into America and do amazing, and I love it. I'm like, this American dream.
Yeah.
But then we have so many people that are Americans that are afraid for some reason or another to step out and make that step. And I'm not saying like be completely dumb with it, but like make us some kind of a plan and try to see it through, you know?
Do you find, so when I made my jump to full-time, real estate and being an entrepreneur and everything, I found retrospect, what was incredibly scary was not as scary as it was. Did you find that too for your journey? Like, obviously you quit the job you felt led to, and then you just like all in on the salon, which potentially could have helped its success. You could have shortchanged it by not doing that move. But did you find that a year in, although it was hard, it wasn't the things maybe you were scared of weren't things you should have been scared of?
Yeah, I think we do that a lot, though. I think we always, as a human, we always run through every negative play, you know what I'm saying, in our head, and we're just like running every bad scenario, that we never run the good scenarios. You know what I'm saying? Like the pros and cons, like freedom with your family. And I think that's too. I think you have to figure out what's important. Is like passive income for me now is not to grow my wealth, but it's for my family. I want to spend more time with my kids and really be a father, and just, I don't want to be one of those guys that work all the time, like 60-hour work weeks, never see their kids because they're making money. Money to me is not that object of the end goal. Right. Mine is I want my family to be close after the kids are gone. So I'm investing in that, and I think to do that, you got to have a goal in your head of, why am I really launching this business or this idea? Is it just for financial gain, or is it for spend more time with your kids or to play golf more? Like, you got to figure out what your why behind what you're even doing. Yeah. And I think that's where a lot of people might give up. They see it as a value of money, which is not a bad thing. But then, like, what is that money going to do for you? Is it to give to the poor? Is it to, I want to give to the church? I want to, philanthropy? Is it I just want to get as rich as I can, Right. And I think that is a deciding factor too to me, it seems like, of how successful you'll be, not just financial, but family too. Like, you can look at a lot of financially successful men, and then how is their home life? It might be amazing, but if you're working that much and you can't give time to your kids, it's like, what is it? You know what I'm saying? What are you doing it for?
What are some best practices that you've found to develop your why? Because you've started lots of different businesses. You've obviously, had to develop that kind of individual. I mean, overarching, there's probably a why.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
But then it's like, why are we doing this specific business?
Yeah.
What are some best practices you've done to answer those questions for you and Brittany?
Yeah, for me personally, I think I know what our why is personally, and this is why we keep launching businesses and we have our structure set up. Our big thing now is we're big in the IBC, so the infinite banking concept. So our whole why now is I want my grandkids to be taken care of. I want to have my trust set up. I want all this stuff to play right. But in order for all that to play right, just because you're leaving money, if you're forfeiting time with your kids, and they're going to be the managers of that money, before it runs to their kids. So it'd be like a business where you're not telling your employees anything, and you're like, I'm just going to grow it as big as I can, But if you're not leading somebody into that growth phase, or hey, when I'm gone, this is how it has to run, you're failing. You're making a lot of wealth now, but dude, when you have money, there's not like anything that you're like, this is going to make me happier. You know what I'm saying? Like if I get a new car or if I go on these trips, this it's not to me, it's not a happiness factor of like, I got to make X amount of money. Mine is more so what trips can I take with my kids? And in our, we have a meeting almost every trip of our business structure, our trust, and we go over our core values as a family. So I think
it's awesome.
I think people leaving those parts out, if they're trying to set up this whole trust and all this stuff, to me is just a dumb thing. But
yeah, I think back to there's a podcast, or not a podcast, a post I saw the other day, and it was like labeling like 5 things that high net worth or high successful households do for their kids, and one is the education piece. Is really owning that I am the primary educator of my family, and how can I show them about financial wealth and talk about it and let them, ultimately you're taking that responsibility so that they're the individuals who will manage that wealth properly, rather than spend it on things that are just not worth it, or get them into trouble, because we know with opportunity, obviously there comes the potential for poor choices. So
yeah, I think having that planned out, like in ours, we have like in our trust, like we have if a kid ever gets on drugs, for God forbid, but there's all kind of, and I think structuring all that out of being able to do that, and I think that's just so important, man. I think it's a big thing.
So for a business, tomorrow, you set out, I'm going to start a business. How do you dissect the why for that specific business?
That's a good question. So we'll take our hair company, because we launched our hair company this past year. So our hair company sells hair extensions. And the original part to that was because our salon was buying it from a supplier, and by the time it ends up end user to our consumer, it's marked up so much. The salon makes no money off of the hair itself, and the clients are paying outrageous amounts. So we sourced our own supplier, and we're getting it at a lot cheaper rate, but we're able to sell it cheaper than what if we bought somebody else's hair, tried to sell it in our salon. So I think for that, it was solving a problem, right? Because we had this problem, not necessarily, I mean, we were still making money, but it was like, it could have been better.
Yeah.
And Brittany actually saw this part, and so she started sourcing, but finding that switch of why are we doing it. And even today, we were talking the other day about like, what's our marketing strategy? Like what is the why behind us doing this? And for us in that industry, in this one particular business, the stylists are the ones that are going to be putting it in somebody's hair, right? So they're going to get this hair, sew it in, and put it in somebody's hair. If the stylists don't like it, they're not going to buy the product. Ours, we had 40 stylists trying out our hair while we were sourcing it all. So we put so much effort in the stylists, like what their opinions were. R&D, yes. Beautiful. So we had a great place to be able to push that out in R&D in our own salon, without that fear of shipping it out and it totally, sucking and then getting all this negative feedback. We spent a year and a half just in our own place, So I think each business has its own why. I think we still can, like, we have an Amazon business, so we're still launching businesses. But for me, like the structure of like the Amazon business of why we're doing that. To me, the why behind that business is simply family structure. I want to go into our holding company, our trust, and all that. So that's just to keep growing that. You know, honestly, I mean, it's just you're buying goods and selling them.
Yeah.
But it's nothing like I'm doing it for a value of I want an extra $10,000 a month to live. I mean, that's mainly for succession planning.
Yeah. Well, but I mean, still, that's a why.
It's a why, yeah.
You know, ultimately, you're like, I'm in a position where I can set this up. It's pretty automated. I have the leverage of being a part of a mastermind or being a part of this group that can help teach me how to do it. I can pay for those resources. I can front the money. And long term, it's going to benefit the bigger why. So I just need more cash. I'm going to create a business to create more cash. But on the side of the hair thing, you had a leverageable business that would pair with a new business, and it was like a beautiful thing that made it super successful for you guys.
It was just like a perfect storm type thing.
So now I want to, and if you don't mind, break into the business that you're shutting down.
Oh yeah,
that was not as much of a success. Do you feel like it was like, why is that not working? Do you think partially it is because of a little bit of a detraction from your why, or is there other factors that kind of created that to be not what you want it to be?
That's a great question, and it's something I'm still kind of like processing a little bit.
I'm going to ask you an active question. You're like, I don't know.
Yeah.
This will be podcast for another year from now.
So we came into this business, and like we said, every business that we start, I guess there is a why. And I don't think about that super deep on some of these. So we went in as an investment. So we have this guy that had a job, hardworking guy, a believer. We had a lot of the same beliefs as this guy, and we wanted to kind of bless him. This was nothing about financial or us getting more money. It was really to help this guy out, which was going to be the operator. So me and a business partner put in the capital, and then once we had our initial investment back, we were going to give him 50% of the company. So it's pretty much sweat equity. He still gets a salary, but that was that goal behind it, and it was really just to bless him and his family. Honestly, it wasn't to get super wealthy or anything like that. So then I also have a harder time of why it fell, because I'm like, in my head, I'm doing this for all the right reasons, right? Like I'm like, it's not a selfish thing. It's really to, and me and my partner both, like that was our whole reason was to invest in him. The reason it failed, I think we put a brand new operator in a business. It's a franchise. So my impression, and I've never done a franchise prior to this, and I probably won't after, but I thought they had the playbook, and it was just like an easy playbook to run, you know? And so we put this operator in, and I stayed on 6 months of like helping get things going. I think we should have probably committed a year and a half to me and my business partner, because he's an entrepreneur as well, just to really push into it.
Right.
So hindsight 2020, I would have said that more so than anything.
You didn't allot the amount of time to help train. I had an interview yesterday that we were talking about onboarding processes. He works for an HVAC company, does a lot of acquisitions of other companies and bringing on people, hiring, firing, all that. And he was like 2x what you think it's going to be.
Yeah.
And the onboarding process for someone is just a lot longer to get them up. That runway to get them to be a successful employee is just a lot longer. So that's interesting. You break apart. That could have been one of the many things.
Yeah,
Sounds like the model's maybe not the best too. And
maybe, I mean, the business model works on paper for sure. I mean, it's like the industry we were in was like mold and water remediation. So we have a huge competitor here in Birmingham. I think it's just that whole perfect storm of, it was 2.5 years. Is how long it stayed open. It was just it's not a cash flow business. So you're doing these jobs and you're waiting a while before you get the money for it. So you've got to have a lot of money just sitting there. And you would see months, man, that 80,000, 90,000 just start dwindling down. Then you get a big job and it go back up or something, you know?
Sorry to stop you real quick. You said that when we were having lunch, and I don't understand the concept. When you say cash flow business, I think of it as cash coming in, cash coming out. Right. Still. So what is your definition of a cash flow business, and why is that important?
Yeah. So cash flow would be like the salon's a great cash flow business. So a cash flow to me is you can operate so much more because you know every month or every week you're getting $80,000 coming in or whatever. You know what I'm saying? So you're like, you have a lot, like even if payroll is 50,000, you still have excess to be able to spend whatever you need to do. And it's like that every week. So you've got this constant cash flow coming
There's
in.
There's a consistency.
You have cash. Your account may look low Friday, but then when Saturday rolls in on Monday, it's going to go right back up or whatever. You know what I'm saying? This business would be cash strapped, I would think, because you're waiting so long on payments. Because you're working with insurance agencies. So
it's more of like a quarterly or even a bi-annual.
Almost, yeah. I mean, we're still waiting from last October. We went down to Florida. So over a year, we're waiting on a payment from a job we did in Florida during the hurricane.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. So it's like, it's stuff like that. Now sometimes it's like 30 days. 30 days kind of minimum. 45's regular. And some of them go super long, man.
It's interesting because in the rental world, a lot of people are in Section 8. And I don't know if you're familiar with those, but you basically, when you get a Section 8 approval for an increase, they still have to do an inspection to sign off on it. So your rate increase is at that mark date, but you don't actually get the funds until they do the inspection. And currently, Section 8 is so far backlogged, these are potentially happening a year after the increase. Now, they will back pay you.
Okay, they do back pay?
They do back pay, but you effectively,
cash,
you're out this cash for like a potential year. So it's interesting to think through even a rental standpoint, what you say is cash flow, which for the most part, unless you have a vacant tenant, it's a cash flowing, like every month you can expect rent to come in. With some of these Section 8s, these small increases, are kind of delayed. Do they put you up a river? Maybe not, but they also could require some kind of thing in the midst of it, or you could need that cash.
Are they still, they're still paying you their base that original amount, right?
Yeah,
they're
they don't stop paying.
Yeah.
So if they increase like $100 a month,
you'll see recoup that.
Correct.
$1,200 if it takes a year or something like that.
But I've never heard about businesses thinking about the liquidity in such like in calendar times, of like, hey, are we on a weekly or bi-weekly cash flow basis? So you would consider that a cash flow. Yeah. And then if you're more in like, hey, we're going to get hit rush of payments and then we're going to have to sit for 6 months, potentially is not a cash flow.
Yeah, I would say,
that's really helpful.
Because you have that extra cash to be able to use it to develop your business, grow your business, whatever it is.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Pivot, whatever you have to do. Yeah. So like with our salon, we keep a lot in the checking, and I don't recommend keeping money in a checking account, but with a cash flow business too, there's so many swings. Yeah. So you might as well keep whatever you feel comfortable with in the bank so you can handle all those swings for sure. Yeah.
So you start a lot of businesses. Yeah. You I think you have a new salon location coming up. So is this your second one? I know you moved originally.
Yeah, so we had two. Okay. So from our first location, which was 6 chairs, we moved a couple miles down the road, on 119.
Right.
We tried to run that at the same time, and it just, oh, bro, it was a headache, man. So we changed the business model of that to there's 2 different business models in the salon industry. It's like commission based, and then you also have like a rental, right? So the stylists are renting the chair. So we turned that old one into a rental. Had our new salon. The new salon just took off, man. It just
it blew up.
It exploded.
I don't even have hair, and I wanted to go there.
So. That's good. That's a good thing. You know what we're thinking about doing? This is totally off subject, but. I call them toupees, but they're called hair pieces.
Yeah.
So one of my buddies, he has a plumbing business, and dude, I've only seen him like balding for years. He walks in the salon the other day and has a headpiece on, and it looks legit, bro. Wow. Like even up close. So I was like, man, that'd be cool if we offered that for guys. Like, I don't know if I would do it, but there's a lot of guys that would, bro.
Yeah.
So maybe that's the next business. Have like
you already got the
company, right?
You already got the hair sourcing.
Just start getting this other stuff, man. So yeah, that's been a joke, but we've been tossing that idea around for our next business. But
that's awesome.
Yeah, that's fun.
So you didn't shut down the other.
We ended up shutting it. 2020, we sold that build out.
Okay, gotcha.
Because we were leasing it, so we could sell the build out. Mm-hmm. So it really worked out perfect. 2020, we did that, and then that's when we opened the gym.
Sorry, I keep on.
No, you're good,
sorry.
man.
So this is. I'm like, wait. Hold on, Rock.
Slow down.
I didn't know you could sell. So are you transferring the lease over, and then you're just saying like build out? We're gonna put this X value to it,
right? Yeah.
And maybe a little bit of like also saying like, hey, people know that a salon is at this location, so there's some value there.
Not so much on that last part as far as value, but yeah, the build out. We know how much it costs us to do the build out. We sold it to them, of course, at a discounted rate, and then they just sublet from like we still had like a year or two on the lease, so they just did a sublease. Yeah.
Okay, so it's a way to exit, but it's not necessarily like you built a business and you're exiting and making a X return on
and I went by that
business.
Right, and that salon's doing great. They have a whole different concept. They want to keep it small instead of grow, which is totally cool. I went by there the other day to get some mail. We still get like IRS stuff there for some reason, which doesn't make any sense. But
they're in the toupee business, maybe. That's right.
Yeah. So, and then 2020, that's when we bought the gym. Okay. In 2020, we bought CrossFit Birmingham. Yeah.
So, was this already an existing gym, or you built it out?
This was the first CrossFit gym in Alabama.
Oh wow,
dude! It was CrossFit Birmingham. So you Google CrossFit in Birmingham, comes up. It was fun, man. We went in. My business partner at the time, he wanted to do that for a living. He had already owned a gym in McCalla, and he wanted to just keep growing gyms. And so I went in investor side on that, and we helped systems, operations, and stuff like that. It started going really well, and then we sold it. I guess 2022, I think, is when we sold it. So we grew it a lot.
Did you sell it to the guy, or
to Blake Lindsay, which is he went to the gym.
Okay, gotcha.
And him and his wife wanted to purchase the gym.
Nice.
So it was good, man. We made good money. We sold it to them for, which was a good price for them too, and they've grown it even more. So
is that guy who was initially had the vision for building out gyms? Is he continuing to do gyms, or is he pivoted his
he was
vision?
Out, dude. When I joined CrossFit Birmingham, it was like the guy's passion. He's been doing it so long. It was just kind of gone. You know, it's like a. You see baby boomer businesses that were once this big thing, and then the owners slowly started just kind of getting burnt out, I think is what it was. So, which makes buying baby boomer businesses or any business like that a huge thing. And we're looking at buying one right now. But it's the same thing. It's the same concept as analog stuff. Nothing's digital. Yeah. And they're just in that mind frame of like, I'm not going to change, or I don't have that willpower to change anymore. I'm so beat down.
Yeah. There was a guy I met just randomly at Chick-fil-A. I was actually having just a fun ice cream with my son, and he was a super nice guy. He comes up to me and he was like, hey, just what you're doing here is really special. Just good for you, Dad. And I was like, man, that's so cool to just someone to pat you on the back for just doing the simple things in life. But I don't need it. But I mean, it's always encouraging that you're on the right path. Yeah. He's like, this is what life is worth doing. And so I got talking to him, and he owns this carpet cleaning business. And he's still like, in the weeds of it. It sounds like, similar to it. And I'm just like, I actually may have his contact number. I need to find it. But there's so many people out there like that I'm like, I've got to buy one of those in the next 2 to 3 years.
Do you ever listen to Cody Sanchez?
Oh, huge. Dude,
same here.
Yeah,
same here.
Huge. Yeah, I need to consume more of her content. I see her mostly on clips and different things. Yeah. But I know that there's a ton of, like I said, baby boomers coming out of the business in the next 10 years. It's astronomical. And I would say a lot of them don't even know that their businesses have value, and they're just going to shut them down.
The problem we ran into, so we're starting the due diligence process on this business, and I think this would probably go along with a lot of baby boomer businesses, is we looked at their P&Ls, and it was, in that mindset, it was all like, hey, let's pull all the money from the company so we don't pay taxes. And in the first couple of years of our salon, we did the same thing, because that's just like what I thought was the right way to run a business, is be like, but then when you need a loan, when you buy a house, and that's what happened to us. We were going to build a house, and they looked at it and they're like, you don't make any money.
And you're like, well, I do, but
I just show I don't, But anyway, looking at their P&Ls, it was like top line gross was in the market where we were looking, but then bottom line is like negative $1,000, each month, or, was just pulling all the cash out, and it's so hard, and they spend all their personal spending out of that account. So then you're trying to go back, and I think we're going to end up having to hire, and I think we talked about this, hiring a team,
to
come in
decipher
and,
and pull it
for
apart.
acquisitions. Yeah. So, and I think I would say, and this is the first baby boomer I've looked at, but I would imagine a lot of them have that same principle, that mindset of spending all your personal out of your, and like I said, me and Brittany were guilty of that as well in the beginning, because that's how we thought we did it. And that's when the whole stewardship value came into our world of how to steward things. And, and that's where I think put us on this track we are now of stewardship, which is to me huge.
So how do you offset taxes now?
Bro,
because you're still doing it, right?
Bro, let me tell you.
So you're still showing profit on the business, but you're offsetting it other ways, I'm assuming.
Yeah. So the next 2 years, I probably won't pay any taxes, and this all comes back.
You heard it here, IRS.
Yeah, heard it here. Yeah, you can audit if you need to. So I think learning taxes, self-learning, I think that's huge. And we mentioned that earlier, just like learning whatever you can. But then being in groups, so we joined a mastermind last October, so we've been in it for 14 months maybe. And the only thing I ever knew about was cost segregation, which would be for your people, the real estate world. I'm not in real estate, but cost seg on real estate property, and then buying a car. Right? You always just buying a car, you write that junk off, and you're good. Yeah. But then you have different. You have a depreciating, not even an asset really. It's a opposite of asset, really, is what it is. Yeah. But then you have the assets that are depreciated, like a housing, like rental, and then cost segger in that. It's making money. Same thing with equipment rentals, right? Like you can buy dump trucks and then let somebody rent them out for you, and you're getting all that depreciation, but it's still cash flowing. You're getting some kind of an asset. So what we started doing once we learned this group is, I didn't know you could pay no taxes if you invest correctly. So the way that they teach it is partner with the government, because no matter what, you're partnered with the government on every transaction you do. They're your business partner that's going to take their percentage no matter what. You know what I'm saying?
Dude, say that again. That is, I've never heard anybody say that.
Yeah, bro.
And I don't know if I love it.
Yeah, so your business partner.
That's the way the world works.
It honestly. Is. Dude, if you're a W-2 employee, you're partnering with the government because they're getting their cut no matter what. They have a percentage ownership. Every business you do, every house you sell, every house you flip. So the best way to do it is if you look at the government as a partner. Okay, well, what are you going to give me tax deductions on? You know what I'm saying? Like, so solar's big right now. So you have these solar. So they're like, hey, you partner with us and do these things that we're asking. We're going to give you a lot of deductions to take off your taxes. Same thing. We have ATMs, oil and gas funds and stuff we do now. But all that is equipment that you
want to buy an electric car?
You're going to get.
Or you want to buy a car, partner with us. We want you to buy an electric.
Yes.
There's
or
incentives
a 6,500-pound car or greater.
Yeah.
So there's different things. And I think if you grasp that concept of the government is a business partner and you're in this contract with them, but you want to work out the deals to where it benefits you the best, right? Because that's how everybody works. I think you just got to learn those things. You know what I'm saying? I think, and that's what opened my eyes. So we've invested in ATMs. So now we have ATMs across the U.S. We have oil and gas out in Texas and Wyoming. And all those are we can write the depreciation off because it is an equipment on the oil field. So they bring you in as a GP, general partner, and then you drop down to a LP, so limited partnership. Some people get weird on that. Like if something happened and you're a GP for that 1 year period to get your deduction, and something happened to the company, can they come after you? And there are some things, you just kind of got to do your own due diligence on that. But there's some weird things. But yeah, man. So the tax thing, dude, I'm pretty sure I talked to my accountant Q4, a couple of weeks ago at the end of the year, and I was just like, where are we at? How are we looking? He's like, bro, you're straight. I was like, what about next year? And he's like, you're straight. I was like,
all right, what about year 3?
Yeah, I was like, well, year 3. But the thing is too, is like as you're getting this money and you invest it in the correct thing. So I think you have to, when you do any investment, the way that we look at it now is, are we looking for cash flow? Because one of our KPIs that we do as a family is passive income. Okay, so you look at what do I need? Do I need to raise my passive income? Do I need tax deductions? You never let the tax tail wag the dog is a phrase. So you don't want to just jump in this just for the tax advantage, and then your cash flow sucks or something like that. So you got to kind of figure out what your investment style is and why you're even doing that investment. Is it just to hard money lend and get some cash built up and then to invest or something? You know what I'm saying? So it's like every investment we do, we look at it outside of due diligence, but why would we even consider this investment? Like, what do we really need? Because you don't always need money. You know, sometimes you need, I mean, I don't want to pay taxes, bro.
Yeah.
My goal is not to pay.
I've always said the first part of the game is learning how to make the money.
Yes.
And the second part is learning how to keep it.
That's huge, dude. And there's like this level I feel like you hit to where you're making this money, you're growing all this cash, but then you hit this mark, and we talked about, I think before the podcast, about the accredited investor versus the non-accredited. Once you hit that accredited investor thing, bro, it's like it starts going more like exponential growth.
It's like fuel on the fire.
It is, man. It's weird, but you're it's like you're building this goal to get to this mark, and then this mark just exponentially pushes you even faster, maybe.
That's cool.
So it's pretty cool, man. It's my mind's been blown with it, just like the growth and things like that. I think it's a big thing.
I feel like since last time we connected, you're at a totally different level. Like, where do you feel that mindset, that shift in understanding? Has it just been a natural progression, or has there been one specific catalyst that has facilitated a lot of this growth?
I think the reason we have so many businesses under our holding company now, I think, is, I would say, partially boredom. Like I mean, in a way, you
just
know what
the
I'm saying?
game of
it.
it.
It is.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
a game.
yeah.
It's like that's the whole reason I started photography. It's just like, can I do this and do it well, or the gym, everything that we bought or sold or whatever. But now I feel like we have a whole different mindset shift of like we talked about earlier, our why. Like, what is this? Is it just to feel this need of like, let's grow something? Or is it like, what is our why behind it? Because at this point, financially, we're not mega rich, but we're super comfortable, man. Like I probably work 15 hours a week or something like that. You know what I'm saying? So it feels like retirement. You know what I'm saying? I'm able to come here, spend time with you, and nothing's pressuring me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's like, we don't need the financial thing for life now. We're trying to make our 100-year goal right now. So it's like, I think you have to think long-term and big of what you really want. Once you get this certain financial thing and you're set, you're like, okay, this I'm good. So now our KPI, like I mentioned earlier, is passive income. So we're like at 75% of our the way that this is calculated to, just to kind of give some reference, is like your budget. So what your house is, or your, run your household, you get that number, and then you're building up passive income to match that number, then you go 200%. So we're at like 75%. And that's a KPI that we measure with our mastermind. So every month we'll have a call and, hey, what's your KPI? Like, where are you at on your passive income and stuff like that. So I think being around those people and seeing things so different, like we mentioned earlier, just hanging out with people that are on next level, I think that's the big thing.
Has helped the growth.
Dude, it's helped us. Because since we joined in October of 14 months we've been in, we've had over 6-figure growth in that short time period. And a lot of it was saving money on taxes. You know what I'm saying? Because you're paying money on taxes. And that's the thing, too.
But that network opened the conversations
so many
to
doors,
those.
Yes. And I think people, and I got to that point, man, I was like, I had my buddy that I'd done a lot of businesses with, me and him started going separate paths. And I needed people around to keep growing, because if I look at what we have, I can be comfortable and be like, this is all we need. And it is. But I think you got to figure out, to me, as a Christian, I'm like, why would God want to bless us more unless we're stewarding this well and giving back more? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, I think too, like when you talk about some of the financial planning and the 100-year plan and passing down, legacy to your kids and their kids, there's part of it that you could, in theory, say, I just want another beach house. I want to travel to, and not that those things are bad, but in excess, we both know that ultimately that's not going to fulfill you.
Nothing.
And so, you guys are still like, yeah, we probably have you got nice cars. You probably live comfortably. You only have to work 15 hours. You got freedom of time, which is, in my opinion, one of the biggest
Super
key
important,
marks of success is having freedom of time. And you getting to choose what you want to do with your day. But that said, like, you're choosing to take that excess and build out something rather than, oh, I just want another yacht.
Yeah.
You know?
and believe me, like we've got goals, like we talked about this, like we're going skiing next week. I know you're as well. And I want a house in Breckenridge someday.
Yeah.
To me, it's not.
I want you to have one as well,
right, yeah. Dude, so that I can. But like we were talking the other night, and this is like me and Brittany's conversations at home. Okay, and we mentioned this about dreaming bigger than what I've been dreaming, and we look at this property, and we're talking about buying. I think it's like 30 acres, but the guy that's doing the property is like 400 acres. Mm-hmm. And like, we would be happy with this small plot, but man, I want to have a lot more. And me and Brittany were talking about building, it'd be cool if we had like a cabin on the property to invite couples or people that are going through a hard time, being like, hey, come out here, stay for free. You know what I'm saying? Like, and just enjoy the peacefulness of being outside, you know? So it's like, our heart me and Brittany's heart isn't to have the biggest and baddest things for our enjoyment. It really is, man, to our kids and grandkids and other people, man. I think giving back, there's not enough give back you can do without, seems like, getting just blessed more, you know? So it's like, it's a fun thing because you're like, it just keeps growing. Dude, I'm on a board at Hargis. I don't know if it's a Christian campus.
Yeah, I've been super impressed with what they've been doing. Dude, I saw they just got funded. Like, we just paid their goal.
Yes. This is $2.5 million. Paid it off in, I think it's like 2.5 years, something like that. But that has been the coolest thing to be a part of. Sitting on the board, you're seeing this and seeing Aaron, the guy who's operating his vision and what the Lord has told him, and seeing, well, we have conversations just like a business where you're like, okay, well, if this doesn't get funded, how do we effectively pay this loan off? Yeah. And then God comes through every freaking time, man. And you're just like, it's so cool just being around that, because I'm like, this is how he operates in every way. Not saying it's going to be easy, or not saying it's handed to you. There's a lot of hard work, but it goes back to stewardship to me as how you're stewarding this little bit we have. Like, a big thing is to me is like, if you talk to 10 people and you're like, hey, what is your household budget? I would say a lot of those people are not going to be able to say, this is exactly what it costs to run my house. Yeah. To me, I know that. And I think that's important. Like, if I can't run my family as a company and have a profit margin, how can I run a company that I have employees and all this other stuff? You know what I'm saying?
That's so good, man. Yeah. That's so good. So what are some of the takeaways that you have learned on this journey of starting businesses, selling businesses, all that kind of stuff? Give me some 30,000-foot view lessons you've learned.
I think a lot of it, I think we've covered a lot of them, but just to kind of recap, I think the people you're surrounded by is huge. Even if you have somebody on the same level at some time and you want to go further, you've got to kind of still be friends if you want to, of course, but you've got to kind of start doing business elsewhere and growing with more different people. That was a big thing for me, because you get to a point where it's like somebody else might not want growth, or they're completely comfortable, but you feel called to be better or in a different place, and then being around those type people. So I'd say that's very important. Number one would be who you surround yourself with. I think two is stewardship. I think it was like, once we figured out stewardship and why we had wealth and what we did with it, that pushed us so far to the next level. And I think it was just knowing numbers, honestly. I think it was just what we do with our money. You know what I'm saying? Like, are we blowing it on just vacations all the time, or are we spending it, investing it wisely? Because everybody that's listening wants to be investing or wants to have this passive income.
I think too, like, thinking about y'all's journey, and there's probably some people who look at y'all and are like, they just blew up overnight.
Bro, it was so much work.
And it's like, it's so much work.
It is.
It's so much work. There's so much behind the scenes. There's so many extra nights, where you're probably working at the salon, getting things wrapped up from a busy day when you didn't have the extra help, and so many times of pouring over numbers on spreadsheets. I mean, and to get to a place where on any given week, if you don't need to, you can work. Yeah, you can chill out for a little bit. But that was a journey of a ton of hard work,
blood, sweat, and tears, bro.
A lot of risk, a lot of choices to push into the fear, and so this is like incredibly inspiring. I jokingly say this podcast. I've said it more than once. Like, it's selfish, like, because I gain so much from these conversations, and I'm like walking away from this conversation super inspired. Also realizing that I need to have Brittany on now because she probably is the true mastermind of a lot of this.
Yeah, she jumped on a pod the other day. It was Thomas's, and I was on, and then he was looking for some female business people. She's very wise.
Yeah.
She's introverted, but she's very smart.
Yeah.
In our business partnership, where she's a big dreamer. She'll dream these crazy things, and then I'm like the implementer. So like she'll have this huge dream. I'll tell you off air, like one dream she has, but it's so big that I'm like, how can I make that work eventually? So we work out perfect together because I'm like having to figure out how we're going to make this happen. And then she's like the dreamer. So it's like this perfect business partner, you know, of just dwelling, you know, of just creativeness. I don't know. It's good, man.
No, I mean, I think every visionary needs an implementer. Tell me this, how have you all balanced, you know, the romantic, you know, marriage side of things with, you know, kiddos and all that, with being also business partners? Was that difficult at times?
That's a good question. Yeah.
Is it always difficult? You're like, at times it's still difficult some days.
So, man, when we first opened, so I was going from working 6 days a week to still working, but taking care of kids, almost like mom duty in some way, you know. Our conversations those first couple of years we'd go on date nights and start talking about business. And then finally we had this conversation of like, look, when it's our time, no business gets discussed. Now, don't get me wrong. Like if something's going on or and we need to talk, we would 100% talk at home. But I would say 2% of our conversations inside our home revolve around a business. You know what I'm saying? It's nothing that we do. Now we did struggle with that in the beginning because in my head I was like, dude, every freaking date we go on, we're going to be talking about business.
Yeah.
This is going to suck. You know?
Well, I would assume it's like the gym.
Yeah.
When you first start, you're weak, your muscles aren't developed, all that kind of stuff. Your relationship, you know, isn't developed at that place. But now you guys have been doing it for so long, you have those boundaries.
Yeah.
You know how to, hey, we're cutting it off. This is the home. Let's have it about the family, about us. Like, you know, let date night be about date night, you know?
Yeah, and I think the only thing we'll talk about business, like if we're doing an investment, I'll talk to my son about it. He's 13 and our daughter, and we'll kind of pull people together, or like our family together. Not that they necessarily understand all the investment, but just I want them to understand what this family does, like what the Sandrettos do. I think that's very important. So we'll have conversations like that, but nothing major, pressing. And we have a good team, man, that manages. So we're pretty straight on most of that stuff.
Dude, that's great.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit. I mean, I feel like we could sit here for 2 hours.
Oh, bro, I can keep rocking.
3 hours.
I mean, I ain't got nowhere to be.
What is your plan? What's y'all's plan to give that information, that training, that heart to your kids?
That's good.
Because, you know, there's that cycle that a lot of people talk about as, you know, from prosperity comes poor choices, and the poor choices create hard times, and from hard times you create hard people who ultimately create prosperity, and it's this cycle.
It's a cycle.
And when Amy and I talk, and I'm often thinking, I'm like, I want my kid's life to be a little bit easier in some ways than mine was in some ways, but then I look back, like we talk about early work, like I was slinging, you know, burritos at Taco Bell at 14.
Oh, wow.
You know, just learning work ethic. Yeah. I mean, at that time, you could only work for 3 hours a day. You probably still, as 14 years old.
Yeah, 14 years old.
There's a requirement. And so I would ride my bike. It was like 15, 20 minutes. I would ride my bike down to the Taco Bell. I made $4.75 an hour. And I worked 3 hours because that was my max. And then I would ride my bike home. I was homeschooled, so I had the opportunity to work. And I worked lunch shift. So I literally worked the hardest hours of the shift, no break. But I learned a lot through that process. And I think it built in me a work ethic that I want my kids to have. Yeah. But it came from a place of like, if I didn't make money, my parents weren't giving me money. Like they didn't have a ton. So if I wanted extra, I had to go earn it, you know, at $4.75 an hour.
It took a lot of earning.
It took a lot of earning. But all that to say is I don't have the solution. I am begging the question of people who are ahead of me, and how do you instill that in your kids so that when they get these, funds that are going to be endowed to them because of y'all's great planning, that they use them wisely and do the same as you would want them to do, which is bless others?
That's a great question. So I think, out of the 4 kids, so we have a 16-year-old, 13-year-old, 6 and 5. So the 6 and 5, there's only so much understanding. You're just trying
to keep them alive.
Trying to keep them alive. So there's 2 board games that I would get depending on the age of your kids. It's Robert Kiyosaki's Cash Flow.
Yep.
So we've got the little version, and then we also have like the adult version, whatever. So on our board meeting, we went to the beach this summer, and we did our first like board meeting as a family. So we took like probably, I don't know, 4 or 5 hours out of the day to we played the game. Went over all our business structure, how everything's structured. I don't think they understood every bit of it, but at least we got some knowledge going that way.
Planting seeds.
Yeah, some kind of a planting seeds. So as an entrepreneur, I want all my kids to be entrepreneurs. I don't want them to go to college. But if they choose to, that's totally cool. If there's a reason they're going, like, what are you going to college for? To be a doctor, to be a lawyer, something that you really have to have a degree for. I'm totally behind that. I'm totally cool with that. So my 16-year-old and my 13-year-old, they'll go this weekend actually to Birmingham. We have an Inner Circle Live, so they'll talk to non-accredited people, still Wealth Without Wall Street, my group, but and they'll show them different ways to make money when you're not accredited. And there's tons of ways too on that. But anyway, so it kind of gets them in those rooms. And we did one in Nashville at the end of the year, and we'll do this one as well. And just get them around those type people. So my daughter works at the salon, and she's not super entrepreneurial. So I'm not really sure how she's going to play out in that role of doing everything. Now my son, he's more entrepreneurial. Like he started a business in our neighborhood. We live in a subdivision, and you take your trash bins out. And so he did like a $20 a month. He'll do your service for you, like pull them from the house, put them on the thing, put them back after the trash pickup.
I bet he got a couple customers.
Yeah, he did. And I think it helped him to kind of realize like, oh, wow, you can make money doing this. He wants to be an entrepreneur. He's like, I want to do what you do. Talking about me. He didn't want to work for somebody else. In our trust to be provided for as children, we have a item in there to where they have to work at one of our companies for a year before they're even allowed to pull from the trust or have anything like that.
That's cool.
So I think just having them around those people, I think bringing them, the good thing with this group, there's a lot of I'd say 13 to 17-year-olds that are sons and daughters of our members that are already doing investment stuff and making cash. So having them around, and this year they're doing a kids portion to where it's like I think 13 to 18, and they'll have their own room. Everything's kind of not dumbed down, but more understanding for a younger person. So I'm excited about taking them to that. But I think just being around those people of being like, hey, I have free time, and I want to control my own schedule and what I really want out of life. Do I want freedom, or do I want to work, W-2? That's going to be ultimately a decision they're going to have to make. I think for us as parents, the best thing that we can do is bring them in every conversation we have, because having those financial conversations, like I mentioned earlier, it was like a taboo. So sex and money was always like a taboo in my house growing up. Like I don't know what my parents made. It was never a conversation. Mm-hmm. We never talked about sex. It was like even when we were dating, it wasn't like a. And so in my house, we have an open policy on anything sex, anything money. It's just like we want that conversation to flow freely.
You want it to be through you, not outside
somewhere
of
else.
you.
Yeah. And so, and it's worked, as good as it is. Like 16. I mean, we had some rough seasons, of her just trying to find her place. And then, so I think every kid's going to be a little different, man. I don't like the younger two. I don't even know what they're going to be like,
Yeah.
But I'm scared as well of that, because our younger two, the 6 and 5, have a lot more financially than my older two did, because we were growing the businesses when they were young. So
they remember those early years.
Yeah, us working all the time. So I think we'll have 2 different generations of how we're going to teach, possibly. I'm not really sure on that. I think so.
That's really good. I was privy to this conversation about happiness And not to say that happiness is the ultimate goal, but it is, I think it's good to have some happiness sometimes.
Sometimes.
And it's
I want to be happy all the time.
Yeah. And it's directly related to almost your the circumstances are what you compare yourself to.
Oh yeah.
So, for example, you're going to be a lot happier. And maybe why we talked earlier about the person who comes over from maybe a less fortunate country to here. Yeah. And they work really hard because their circumstances and their context of what their expectations are just drastically different than my expectations even. And so actually that was the quote. It was like your happiness is derived basically the difference between reality and your expectation.
Oh, that's true.
So I want to figure out too. I love everything that you added to say, and it's like, how do you take the kids, your first generation, we'll call them, of kids, their expectation is different.
Yeah, for sure.
Than the second generation of kids.
Right.
So they have this context, and how do you get them in situations that their expectations are lowered on what the expectancy of life should look like and the comforts of life should be, and that's why sometimes like I don't shy away from, my son wants a mobile watch, that he can be able to text and stuff. And a lot of kids in the neighborhood have it. I don't shy away from the fact that I'm not buying you one.
Right. Yeah.
And
but if he worked for it, would you like if
he worked for it? Yeah.
Idea,
If he came up with
hard work pays off.
Yeah. If he did, I would definitely reward that. But in general, you're just, I could afford it.
Right.
I could give the service. Honestly, sometimes it'd be more convenient for me because
I
could reach out and be like, hey, come home for dinner, But on the flip side, it's like, I don't need him to fit in all the time.
Right. Yeah.
Like there's okay with some conflict with today's society because I think a lot of what today's society is doing for our kids is actually not good.
100%.
And so, yeah.
I think a big thing with that is ever since they've been young kids, we've always say Sandrettos are different.
It's good.
We don't do, and some people might think this is weird, but like we don't let our kids spend the night outside of our house. They can have friends over, they can party at our house, do whatever, but not do whatever. You know what I'm saying? Let's put this thing on it.
Yeah.
But you know what I'm saying? Like, so I think Sandrettos, we use our name, and I think everybody should use their last name as something powerful, something big. I saw this video the other day, and this guy, I can't remember who it was on Instagram as a short, but he was like, I don't let any of my kids wear somebody else's jersey because they're never going to wear somebody else's last name on their back. And I was like,
that's
I
cool.
like that. Yeah, because it's like our name, I think, last names used to mean so much back in the day, and now in America it's not as much. But I think just letting them know that they're coming from a place that's different and they're not going to act like the world, and trying to teach that. We also implemented, which is an amazing book. It's super short read. It's called 18 Summers. And it's essentially like saying, hey, you have 18 summers with your kids. And so you set up, they call them family board meetings. So we have 4 kids. So every quarter I take one kid individually for like half a day and we go do stuff. So like me and my son went ziplining in North Alabama, me and my daughter top golf, So it's like trying to spend that time. And then during that time, there's no cell phones, no electronics, but you're getting to know the heart and let them talk and asking good questions, like what fears do you have or what stresses you out right now? And at 16 and 13, different stressors are different, different ages have different stressors. And I think having that communication and being real tight, because when my kids, I don't want 18 summers, I want until I die summers, I'm saying? I want them to always come back, and I want my family to be close. So like even last night we were riding home from my parents after the game, and my oldest daughter was like, hey, what siblings, she was talking to other siblings of like, what siblings do you dislike the most? I was like, hold on. I was like,
this is a dangerous conversation.
I was like, in this house, we don't dislike any of our siblings. Like our siblings are our team.
Yeah.
You can say, I might like hanging out with somebody more than the other, or I have more fun with this one at certain times. But as Sandrettos, we don't bash anybody in our family. You know what I'm saying? Like every kid's going to speak good about their siblings, and I think that's important too.
That's good.
And I learned that from the domains. They're always that was their big thing. of just the kids speaking good things over each other and stuff like that, having each other's back.
That's
But I think to create that family that I want, in the future when everybody's moved out, I think is going to be how close and how team they are now, and just pushing that through their adult years,
So good, man.
Yeah.
Well, dude, this has been a wealth of knowledge and
fun,
just inspiring. And, I think, like I said, I could sit here for another 2 hours. We may have to do episode Rock Sandretto too. Maybe bring in your wife and have her share some. But it's so great to be stretched. And to like I said, already I'm like, I want to get off this episode and just start writing down my dreams aren't big enough, just kind of like, what does the future look like? And, it's just incredible for, I don't know. I'm just walking away inspired, and selfishly, that's why I do this podcast, is because I think every conversation informs growth, informs potential, informs better decisions. And this is touched on not just the business side of things or management of money or taking risks, but like so much personal vision and growth and stuff. So I appreciate the time. And
thanks for having me, bro. It's been
been huge. So best of luck in 2024 and everything you put your hand to. And man, enjoy the time.
Thank you.